I will now ask to the entire team in charge of crop protection from the iteipmai to tell you what was done this year. Two projects, the ADHEMAR project, financed within the PARSADA project, which is, well, I'm going to explain to you what it is, and another project managed in 𝗖𝗛𝗥𝗗𝗢. Now, I will leave the floor to Anne, who is going to tell you everything about this first project within the iteipmai. Good morning, everyone.
Donc pour démarrer cette séquence, je vais vous présenter.
To start this session, I'm going to introduce the PARSADA system. Some of you may have heard about it already, but maybe not all of you. It is the anticipation strategic plan regarding the withdrawal of some active substances. It started in 2023. It was launched by the Ministry of Agriculture to meet with the progressive removal of active substances in France and in Europe. They've listed 75 substances that may be at risk of removal by the EU. And in the meantime, we have observed difficulties for various sectors to develop alternative options and innovation in the field. So there is a big gap between the removal of chemical substances and the rising of alternative solutions. So PARSADA aims at anticipating and accelerating research to bring operational solutions to producers in the field. It is a system that is pretty new because it involves the different sectors involved all along the process. There was an impact analysis carried out when the plan was launched regarding substances at risk of removal, and it led to the identification of issues faced by all sectors. Each sector has also made an overview of the current situation in research, and then there were action plans designed to meet with these issues. Once these action plans were validated, some research projects can be actually submitted to find solutions. There were quite high means dedicated to this research. There are several waves of financing. Wave number one was 143 million euros dedicated to research, which is quite a high level for agricultural projects. 50 projects were submitted and 28 of them were validated, one of them ADHEMAR, which we're going to explain. For the second wave, 2025, the budget was 45 million euros allocated. And the projects are being validated as we speak. So you can find the presentation of PARSADA on the Ministry of Agriculture website. As I told you, it involves all sectors. They were brought together to join 8 task forces, one per main sector, and one is for maps and hubs. This task force is led by iteipmai, surrounded with other research structures like CREAPAM, AGPH, and INRAE. And it also brings to the table professionals of the sectors and public instances. This task force builds and designs all the plans, diagnosis, action plan, and it helps project submitters to design their project. And around all these elements, we have entities in charge of assessing and validating the projects, DGA, France-AGRIMER for the financial aspect, the scientific and technical committee of the project. And all those together actually decide which project will be validated. And at the end, the projects validated will be financed by PARSADA. Now, how is it? That was the structure of the PARSADA system. Now, what projects have been selected? For our sector, in the first wave, the number one issue that was brought up was the management of weeds in maps. So a project was submitted, and the iteipmai was actually the designer and supporter of this project. The rest of the sector also submitted other projects regarding weed, and some were transversal projects, PARAD, ASAP, METASERV, that do not only involve weeds and weed management, but other issues, so they are transversal projects, together with other task forces and sectors. For the other wave, impacted by substances removal, is the fight against mildew, with 2 action plans that were submitted. 2 projects were supported by iteipmai, Mobilize for basal mildew, and Pseudo for hop mildew. However, unfortunately, those projects were rejected. So we're contemplating resubmitting a common project, a joint project on these 2 issues, hop and basal. And we're also considering working with the other sectors that are also impacted by mildew issues. In the PARSADA framework, we're also working on other topics that are less of a priority. We are working with other projects such as 𝗍𝗏𝗄𝗠 that works on Lepidoptera issues. So this is the panel of how the sector works within the PARSADA framework. I will now leave the floor to Marie and Léonie, who are going to tell you more about the ADHEMAR project and how we anticipate the removal of herbicides within maps. And so this project is financed by PARSADA. It was designed by 11 partners, will be worked on for 5 years. And Marie will tell you about our first action plan. I'm going to tell you about the first action regarding agro-equipment that I'm coordinating. Many partners were brought to the table, especially Telespazio, who are going to tell you later today what they're going to do, so I will not mention them, and I will tell you about this year's trials. One of the actions of the project is to identify, test, and develop tools that are adapted to maps through innovation. We started testing the Farmdroid robot. The Farmdroid is an autonomous electric solar panel fueled robot that can register the lines, and it enables us to sow and hoe between ranks. We tested it on artichoke with 2 means. One, the robot working in line with 1 seed every centimeter, and the control lines were on the same parcel, but sowed in the more traditional way and weeded with the traditional tools. Then we also tested it on trial parcels on other like lemon balm, thyme, chive, mallow, etc. And the blades actually intervene between each pocket of seed, so it was It showed how important it is to have a perfect soil preparation and seeds that have no residue in them. Then between July and September, we also tested farming GT for PMA 28 and within the iteipmai. This robot has onboard cameras enabling it to recognize the center of the seedling in order to cut the weeds around each seedling pocket. And with PMA 28, we tested it on verbena, salvia officinalis, thyme, and other plants. It was interesting to test it on different things. In the iteipmai, we tested it on echinacea, lemon balm, lavender, and mint. Once this time, we had a control group with no intervention at all. We sowed in June, and we used the robot in August, so the seedlings were pretty high yet, and we want to test next year on earlier stages, right after the sowing. And we are going to work on a 𝗬𝗏 control parcel, because with no intervention at all, it becomes too messy. And we're also going to work on black radish. So the advantages is that it's compatible with several plants, such as, for instance, it didn't know echinacea, and it learned very quickly. The more it works, the more it learns, and the more precise it becomes. It requires less manual work, inter-row work. There's a will of the constructor to really focus on the map sector, which is interesting, and it's very robust. It can actually work on stony soils, for instance, or very compact soils. The less advantageous aspect is that the calibration and parameter setting is very tedious. And in September and November, we actually retested the Farmdroid machine, this time on other plants. We added the chemical modality. We used it on 𝗟écznie, for instance, and it enabled us to work on the entire rank and inter-row. So the blades go as close as possible to the pocket. There's a 7-centimeter diameter around the plant that is untouched. And after this third test with Farmdroid, we realized that it was efficient, especially for fast-growing plants. So it's completely autonomous, it's compatible with a variety of crops, and it has a more affordable costs than other robots. But its limitation is that it can only work at the beginning of the growth cycle. So it has to be used on the fast-growing plants. It's very slow, and the sowing is tedious, whereas its hoeing is pretty efficient. Then we were lucky enough to have 4 demonstrations of technologies within the project. The 𝗏𝗏 hoeing machine. It's toad technology. It has a nitrogen ball enabling the discs to open and close. So we tested it on mature hybrid lavender and lavender. We also had a Terra tool carrier. It was good because you can be autonomous, you can see the row underneath your legs, and so you can follow up your work in detail. Here we tested the Lemken toad machine. The blades open and close with cameras that recognize the core of the plant with an AI system. Right now it's only been developed on salad and onion, and we tested it on echinacea with a colorimetric software. And another laser weeder technology, a Greek technology. Once again, it's towed with a tractor. It's a very precise laser camera AI system that recognizes weeds. And the company offers a full, comprehensive training and support. And we tested it on radishes and other plants. We retested Lemken, Farming GT, and Farmdroid. Well, we're going to test them again in 2026. For those tests, there will also be 𝗖𝗛𝗔𝗣𝗘𝗟𝗟𝗘 small robot. It's a field-friend robot. The mechanical weeder by Oliver, and the laser robot from Switzerland. 𝗟éliche is also our partner and is going to develop over the 5 years a GPS sower that is adapted to hoeing as well. They started this year. The first step is geolocalization of the plant, so GPS. It will also have a user interface and recording software and a receiving box with a computer in it. You can put the GPS antennae on this automated hoeing machine with a hydraulic engine closing and opening the blades around the plant. Now I'm going to let you watch 2 videos of our trials with these robots. Thank you very much. I leave the floor to Leonie for the rest of the presentation. Good morning. After Mary, I'm going to tell you about the end of the ADHEMAR project. Action 2 on phytosanitary action is being defined and discussed with our financiers, and it's less interesting for our purpose. So action 3 is identifying levers and agronomic tools. We want to work on a joint purpose with a technical and economic and practical assessment tool. We tried to harmonize protocols between each partner. Then we wanted to work with a sister software developed by 𝗟éliche for arable crop for technical and economic analysis of such systems, and we tried to adapt it to maps, although it was designed for a different type of crop. And last but not least, we decided to organize training sessions so that people who are going to score the project have a strong know-how and practical knowledge of weeds at the early stages. Regarding agronomic interesting practices, at first they were individually tested. For those regarding the reduction of weed pressure, we tested rotation and intermediate crop. And we tested the impact of cover crops on the weeding of the next crop. And then with our partner, we tested new rotation schemes, especially regarding the planting of intermediate crop planting, especially before lavender planting. We worked also on the impact of irrigation and fertilization, with a minor action on testing the quality of irrigation waters from the Rhône River. And then we tested innovations on fertilization and irrigation, like drop irrigation and so on, and more traditional methods, how to adapt fertilization with the existing equipment to see where we have to put fertilization and so on. Now, regarding the interesting agronomic practices regarding weeding, there's a subset of actions to test cover crops. So we are following a project that was started and supported by the 𝗟écznie regarding winter cover crops between lavender rows. And after this project, we're going to have a focus on the management of weed and how these management can be helped by winter inter-row cover crops by mixing species, at which quantity, and so on. A more innovative test, which is perennial cover crops in lavender inter-rows. We started with a bibliography overview. And then we started thinking on how to mix in the most relevant way, and we came up with 20 mixes. And iteipmai in the south of France, in the Drôme, we have an experimental station, and also in the Chamber of Agriculture and at the 𝗟écznie. So 3 different sites. And we are going to have row screenings, and then we're going to select the best candidates, and then we're going to move them on to producers' trial parcels. Another subset of action in this project is regarding liquid mulching. First, we want to know the impact of the mulching on the crop and then on the weeds, especially. For that, we conducted a trial in 𝗔𝗵𝗄 here. We planted chamomilla, echinacea, lemon balm, and mint. And these are the different types of mulching that we tried. Hemp, miscanthus, barley straw, corn straw, and wood chips. The mulching was implemented last year, and we'll see how it turns over the years. We are looking right now at different trials to implement in 2026 after reading the bibliography. We're also going to test other levers at a more innovative level that we think are interesting. For instance, this year we tested seeded papers on different cultures. The point was to test paper that is filled with seeds within the layers, and we tested several layers, sometimes one layer with just the paper, then this seeded paper with other paper layers underneath, and we tried to see if it had an impact on weed growth. And it was pretty interesting, so we are going to renew this by refining this type of species and the thickness of the paper. And we also tested hydromulching to see if some species that were planted can be sowed and vice versa. And then, once we've worked on all these levers individually, the idea is to redesign the management techniques to combine all these levers together with systemic approaches, with pluriannual testing. And Julie is going to tell you more about this. We're going to we're designing workshops in order to have think tanks with the producers to see what would be most interesting to implement. And then the trials will start in experimental parcels with the producers, with an agricultural high school, for instance, that's going to have trial crops all throughout the 5 years of the test. So regarding Action 4, it's a key aspect of the PARSADA system. It's really focusing on the dissemination and the deployment of all we've worked on. So as far as we're concerned, we are going to make demonstration videos, such as the one you saw earlier. Also technical guides. You can find the first ones on our website and also on the YouTube channel of iteipmai. We've also decided technical demonstration days where people can see them live, and also created 2 large fairs dedicated to the agricultural machine demonstrations dedicated to maps, one in 27 and one in 29. The first one in the southeast and the second one in the northwest of France. You'll have the dates as soon as we know them exactly. And we also want to train producers and technical specialists to our results. And we also want to train them around all the mapping tools that are developed by 𝗟écznie, our partner in the project. And you will hear about them later this morning, I think. Also, we want to work with producers and, the future producers and technicians. So we're working with the agricultural high school and also the National Shepherd's House with their teachers, so that future students are aware of all these innovations. Feel free to ask us questions. You can scan this QR code to reach our project page, and you can also send us an email to have more information. Thank you. Thank you to the 3 of you. They deserve a round of applause. So you could see this ADHEMAR project is really the key project in our weed management activities. It's really a strong point, and one of its virtues is really to work in the long-term, 5 years span, and including the works that were carried out this year. We're going to have some time for Q&A, or actually testimonies, because if you want to tell us your experience, if some of you want to give us their feedback on what they have tested with innovative equipments, feel free to share with everyone. I can't see if there's any hand raised for a comment or question. Raymond Auray, just feedback regarding mulching. For 3 years now, we started mulching with compost from waste management facilities, public facilities, and we have good results, especially to control weeds, especially the plant that everyone hates today, which is ragwort, of course. So it is possible to control it with mulching. I have a second question to Raymond. It would be interesting what type of waste was composted in this facility. Can you tell us more? I do have the mic. I can answer. It's from a waste management facility, so it's from pruning and grass wastes, and they are composted at the waste management station, and we take it once it's already composted, but we still have some wood particles, wood chips within it, and they actually degrade on the parcel, and every time that, every spring we add a new layer of mulch, and it actually brings an amendment to the soil at the same time. I had a question regarding robots. I was lucky enough to see the farming GT, which is interesting. It's very it performs very well. It's reassuring to see that techniques are improving. I was wondering how manufacturers are perceiving the limitations we have given the diversity of plants that we grow. Does it help them improve their techniques? Does it stop them because they think it's too complex? How do they perceive our specificities? Well, I can't speak for them. But Farmdroid has been working for a while now in the map sector. So I think they perceive this as a challenge to support our issues. And with FarmGT, they had already tested over maps in Germany. And they really want to develop more tools in their databases, more image databases and so on. They really are motivated to sort our weed problems with us. I don't know if I answered your question. 𝗖𝗛𝗔𝗍𝗍𝗘, I work for LVMH Research. I am in charge of sector management to develop cosmetics in our corporation. I had a question regarding agro-equipment because on your presentation, it seems to be for annual or young perennial. Do you have agro-equipment for older perennials, older lavenders or roses, for instance? Because there are weeding issues, I suppose, on these plants as well. So are there agro-equipments that would enable the weed management between branches of roses or lavender? Because here you have robots that can ride over the plants because they are very low, but for higher, we tried with vine equipment, but they're not adapted. So have you tested anything that could be adapted or that already exists on roses? Well, this year we worked on annual or very early plantations. But next year we are going to try on older mints and lemon balms. For roses, it's a bit different because they were not in our priority list, but I've heard it a lot yesterday, so I will actually look into it because it's been a strong demand. Maybe we can actually look at what they're doing in the vine sector, but adapting it, and we have 4 years left, so we have time to look into it. And for all the plants, we have this small robot, 𝗔𝗗𝗛𝗘𝗟𝗟𝗘. It's very light. It can actually brush over the plants without damaging them. And laser technologies also make it possible to be higher above a plant and maybe to target between mint and lemon balm. I'm not sure it really meets your issue with roses especially, but for all the plants at least it works. Frédéric Lenglet, I wanted to talk again about mulch. Are you going to assess the nitrogen management, because you're adding very carbon-based elements, and so we need to compensate, all the bacteria and fungi need the nitrogen to compensate this carbon amendment. So how do you manage that extra need of nitrogen? We haven't set for any accurate analysis of this issue, but it could be included. I know that you've seen, somebody will tell you about nitrogen added to mulching. We've just mulched, so I think as the trial goes, it will become an issue and we'll have to look into that. It's a very relevant question. How are we going to carry out analysis, or are we going to have something more visual? We had tested in another project, but we couldn't find any significant difference. So to see if fertilizing of the soil was more necessary or not, it was not striking in our trials. How about mineralization with very stable carbon injected in the soil over 10 years, 20 years? What will be the impact? Benoît Leduc, producer. Sorry, I'm stumbling. Have you calculated the economic cost of one robot action compared with one other machine action? Well, we are developing an assessment of every equipment, including the economic aspect, to see if in the long run it saves money or if it's more costly, if it really saves manual labor hours or not. We'll look into that. It is in the test. One last question before the next presentation. Juliette Collop, I am a teacher at Vocational Center. Why are you carrying out analysis on the quality of water on the Rhône water? Yes, I mentioned it very quickly because it's part of the project. We just wanted to do filtrations to see if the water contained weed seeds, so it's highly localized. It was not about some worries about the Rhône quality.